Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Carrie McGinn. I'm a physical therapist and yoga instructor and coach in Western Massachusetts. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to dive right into today's topic. Alrighty. This always takes like a half a second, so bear with me. Alrighty. So, coming back from COVID, a look forward to the year ahead. That is what we are diving into today. And I will say up front, we're going to be diving into a lot of different topics, a lot of different things to kind of review and to kind of look forward to this year ahead. So, just a bit of a background. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've experienced the past couple of years, how that plays a role in how we've led our daily lives, talk a lot about uncertainty and stress, and then give you some real practical tools on how to move forward from this place, from mindfulness to staying grounded to really tapping into supporting from your community. So, a touch on where we've been. I think we all kind of know all these things, but COVID brought us quarantine, social distancing, masking, financial stressors, excuse me, social and political unrest, as well as physical sickness. And all of these different things definitely affected each of us in a different way. I think I would be remiss to say that every single person was affected the exact same way. For some people, quarantine didn't really change their lives. For other people, I know like my partner who works in the entertainment industry, he was out of a job for quite some time. So there's a lot of different variables that go into all these different things. While social distancing and masking, were really great for helping decrease the spread, there also was some negative side effects to those as well. So in general, over the past couple of years, we've been through a lot as a community, as a society, people losing their jobs, having to pay extra for healthcare, all sorts of different things have been going on in the lives of ourselves and our loved ones. And I want to just start off with that fact today to show that I don't expect every single thing I speak about today to land with you personally. We all have had our own experiences over the past couple of years. That doesn't mean there might not be something you can take away from today's presentation or something you might be able to share with a friend or a coworker. So take into consideration, especially when we talk at the end about offering and receiving support in uncertain times, that every single person, even on this call today, has had a slightly different experience over these past couple of years. So some negative effects that we've experienced is lack of income opportunities and reduction in pay, increased feelings of stress, fear, and sadness, increased anxiety and depression, increased feelings of loneliness, a lost sense of community, loss of social connection, and decreased physical health due to lifestyle disease. And I'll be honest, I'm just scratching the surface on some of the things that we have seen been happening or I've experienced personally or as a community, as a professional out in the community. So these are not all encompassing some of the negative side effects. And I do think that this time of our society will be studied for quite some time and what it's done to our mental health and what it's done to our physical health and our lifestyle and our economy. So I recognize that I did not name everything, but I also want to just give you a taste of what we've all experienced. And I'm sure everyone has kind of their own experience to add here as well. So these are some of the negative effects, right? But let's look ahead now. How do we take this past year, these past couple of years, and how do we move forward? One thing we really have learned is we all have to make tough decisions, and what works for one person might not work for another. Well, yes, there are some things that getting the community on the same page as a whole can be really helpful. Each individual has their own personal experience, their own personal circumstances, and their own things going on in their day-to-day life that they have to take into account when making these tough decisions. All of this, everything I've spoken about so far, and all those decisions and different decisions leads to a really great deal of uncertainty in our lives. And uncertainty can really wreak havoc on our systems as a whole, our nervous system, our physical health, our mental health, our society as a system. So we're going to talk a bit about uncertainty and what that means for us as humans. So uncertainty, it's not being able to be relied on, not known or definite. So just to raise a hands, who feel like they've been dealing with a little bit of uncertainty in their lives, say over the past 3 years? Yeah, you're not alone. I think all of us have felt some sensitive uncertainty in the past couple of years. So, what contributes to uncertainty? Unknown outcomes. So, not knowing how things are going to turn out, not knowing if or when things are going to get better or worse. I remember very early on in the beginning of quarantine, you know, it was only going to be 2 weeks, and that was longer, and that was longer. And it was almost as if everyone just wanted to say, like, okay, at this date, it will definitely be over because that was a known outcome. Okay, we can keep going for 2 more weeks. We can keep doing something for 2 more weeks. I think about this all the time, even as it's going to sound a silly example, but when it comes to exercise, sometimes some people really just want to, like, okay, how many reps do I have left? Because it's just that known outcome. So it can be unknown outcomes can be really uncertain on a small level or a really huge level, like something like a global pandemic. Fear and worry, a lot of uncertainty creates a lot of fear and worry within our system, adds stress to our system. Fear for ourselves, fear for our colleagues, our friends, our family, worry about what may happen or what may not happen, about people's safety, a lot of worry. And then unsafety plays a huge role here. So it's really important to understand that at the end of the day, our nervous system, which is our spinal cord and our brain, I call her the queen. And I call her, the queen for me, could be a king for you. The queen only wants to be safe. And what she cares about most is safety above all else. So when the queen does not feel safe, it can really change how our physical bodies are feeling and our mental health is feeling and how our organs are working and how our muscles are working. So uncertainty can really lead to a lack of safety in the body, which actually is shown to lead to things like pain and mental health and other emotional discomfort. So, what happens when we're faced with continuous uncertainty? So, like uncertainty after uncertainty after uncertainty. This is kind of a newer research kind of phenomenon over the past, say, 10 years or so. So, when you are faced with uncertainty after uncertainty, you have to recognize that that causes a lack of safety in the body, which adds stress to the body. This can put you into what's called sympathetic overdrive. So, has anyone heard of fight or flight mode, fight, flight, or freeze versus rest and digest? Sympathetic overdrive is when you're stuck in fight or flight. So your body's kind of like always ready to rumble. It's ready to fight. It's ready to get out of there. It's ready to like come to your savior and like take you out of a stressful and threatening situation. Fight or flight mode is not inherently bad. What isn't so great is when we get stuck in fight or flight mode for hours, for days, for weeks, for months, heck, for years on end. That's when it can be really detrimental to our physical and mental health. Oftentimes, people describe it as that feeling like they're always on edge, wired but tired, like their heart is racing, but they feel like they can't really make any decisions. So that's sympathetic overdrive. And really, sympathetic state, that fight or flight, is meant to get us out of the situation. Think about our ancestors hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. A tiger was in front of them. Their body went into sympathetic fight or flight response. Too many S's there. And then they ran or they fought the tiger. The stressor was over. They continued on with their day. For a lot of us in our modern society, the stressor is not over, especially these past couple of years. This can lead to a chronic stress response, such physical symptoms as headache, muscle tension or pain, stomach upset, chest pains, things like anxiety, restlessness, lack of motivation, focus, irritability, anger, things like over and under eating, angry outbursts, substance abuse, social withdrawal. This can also lead to emotional exhaustion, the fatigue that comes from kind of caring too much for too long. And eventually, this can lead to burnout. So, a lot of us, you might be on here being like, wow, that sounds familiar. I know I've been there over the past couple of years. And I'm going to tell you there's some things that you can do to move forward. So we're going to talk about, and I will say this is not the end all be all. If you're experiencing any of these physical symptoms, I do recommend that you talk to a doctor and maybe even a therapist or someone else that you can work with closely. But if you feel like you're like, I'm ready to take some action for myself to move forward, to consider all the things in my life, all the things that, understanding that COVID is probably going to be a part of our life moving forward, but how can I approach this from a different place so that I can move forward feeling good and feeling not burnt out? So we're going to talk a bit about mindfulness. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our power to choose a response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. By Viktor Frankl. This is one of my favorite quotes about mindfulness. And for me, really just embodies what mindfulness is to me. So it's this ability between stimulus and response, something happening to you and how you react or respond, to choose what you're going to react or respond. So I think about it, you're scrolling through the news, scrolling through Twitter, instead of seeing a headline and immediately panicking, and whether that be commenting or reaching out to someone and really, for lack of a better word, panicking. Mindfulness is the ability to pause, to breathe, and to say, okay, like what is going to best serve me here? And sometimes the answer is just sitting with that emotion of panic, of worry, of fear, and showing yourself a little compassion. Sometimes the answer is just doing what you originally planned to do. There's not always a right or wrong answer. The mindfulness piece is the ability to pause, reassess, and make the best move for you going forward, which might be different than the person sitting next to you, maybe even different than your family members. So that's really what mindfulness is, that space where you can decide to respond or react, where you can tune in and breathe, and to really deeply know that space is mindfulness. So just starting to see, and here's the thing, mindfulness is not the cure to burnout by any means. But mindfulness is a great way to prevent burnout and to aid you in a healing journey from burnout. And I think anyone on this call, anyone who's been alive over the past couple of years, could probably benefit from adding a little bit of mindfulness into their day-to-day life, so they're not constantly overstimulating their system. So it's this ability to slow down and kind of let yourself respond instead of react, and let yourself respond from a place that's going to serve you long term, not serve you short term where you're here now. I always think about the example also of driving in the car. I lived in Boston for 12 years and I just recently moved out of the city. But driving in Boston, anyone who's lived there knows that it's like, can be a lot, can be a little overstimulating. And I think about this space as you're driving in Boston and someone cuts you off. And like your immediate reaction might be want to like throw all of the curse words at them, honk your horn, and like get really angry. And I'm not saying that's a bad response or that I haven't done that before. But mindfulness is the ability to say, okay, will I feel better after I do that, or will I feel worse? Sometimes you might feel better after honking your horn and kind of yelling at them. Sometimes you might feel a lot worse. So sometimes you need to realize, okay, you know what? I'm just going to take a deep breath and ignore that right now so that I can move on and focus on the rest of my day. That's a way of practicing mindfulness that can really protect us long term and help us move forward in a really positive way. So mindfulness is the ability to stay focused on the present moment in a non-judgmental way as a powerful catalyst for contentedness. I just want you to sit with that for just a moment here. Mindfulness is the ability to stay focused on the present moment in a non-judgmental way as a powerful catalyst for contentedness. Think about that. When you're able to be in the present moment without judging yourself or others around you, that's mindfulness. So once again, being in your car, just giving yourself to be like, yeah, I'm really angry now. And not judging yourself for feeling angry, but just noticing that the emotion and thinking, okay, what's going to best serve me in this emotion here. So some other ways to practice mindfulness is to breathe. Let's all practice this actually right now together. If you are in a safe space where you can close your eyes, I invite you to do this with me. Let your feet plant flat on the ground, close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in and a long breath out. Notice how you feel, what emotions you feel, what thoughts come through your mind, anything you're holding on to in your physical body, and write it out. Maybe you write it down on your phone, write it down on a piece of paper. That is another mindfulness practice. And that's as simple as it needs to be. You can write 10 pages, you can write 2 sentences, whatever comes up. But the simpleness of it is the beauty of it. Because as you move forward, from today on into this new year, you want to be able to show up for yourself as best you can in a non-judgmental way. That is going to be the way to stay resilient and to prevent burnout, to stay in the present moment, to notice how you feel and what you need, and to act from there. And the first step is just trying to notice what you need. A lot of us put ourselves under even more stress by pushing through negative emotions that can, I don't want to say easily be resolved, but easily be addressed by just noticing and approaching yourself with some kindness. So before I move on, does that make sense kind of how mindfulness can really help us move forward, stay in the present moment? Feel free to pop questions in the chat if you have them. I'll take just like a brief 1-minute pause here to answer any questions if needed. Beautiful. All righty. Feel free to keep popping questions in the chat if you have it, and I'm going to continue on. So some other ways to stay grounded in uncertain times when you're under high levels of stress, right? One is acknowledge and allow your feelings to be felt. Kind of just touched on that, but when you notice fear, anxiety, unpleasant emotions come up, feel your feelings. You can really practice mindfulness by letting your feelings move through us. A lot of times we shove our feelings down, and that can lead to negative effects in the long term. Moving your body is also a really great way. Movement gets us out of our minds and into our bodies. So you can really start to move in a way that's intentional and feel into your body's sensations, really connecting even just to like your feet walking on the ground, your breath moving through your rib cage can be a really powerful way to move forward during uncertain times. Spending time in nature is proven to be so beneficial for our health. I could literally spend an hour and a half talking about how beneficial Mother Nature is for our health, but I will save you all the stats and research and say, just go outside and experience all the different elements of nature. Notice the colors, the sights, the sounds. My favorite mindfulness practice is to walk barefoot on the earth and feel the connection of my body into the ground. Focusing on your breath is a really another beautiful practice to ground you, to help you practice mindfulness during stressful times. Take a few deep, intentional breaths and notice where your breath goes and how it makes you feel. We breathe all day, every day, and most times we don't notice it. Take a moment to notice it. Some other things can be really helpful is make sure you're nourishing your body. When you sit down for a meal, set an intention for how you want to feel and truly be present with your food. So many of us eat on the go, which plays a huge role in how our body feels and even how we feel mentally. So taking the time to even just sit down for 30 minutes to eat, to truly taste each bite and notice how nourishing it is can really help yourself moving forward. Taking a walk is another one of my favorites. I will say this is one, I shouldn't say it's the only good thing, but it's one good thing that came out of quarantine. My partner and I had a lot more free time since both of our industries were shut down. So we started going on for long walks around the neighborhood. And we started with like 45 minutes to an hour. Eventually, as we went back to work, they weren't as long, but taking a walk was a really great way for us to get anxious energy out when we were cooped up in our house. And we did it in a safe way, right? We were walking around in our community, not near anyone else. So taking a walk can be really great mental reset. really great for your physical health, and a really beautiful mindfulness practice. The next one's going to sound really, really silly, but I've found that over the past couple of years, a lot of people's sleep has been affected negatively, whether it's not sleeping due to worry or not sleeping due to staying up late or being off of your schedule or having to work extra to make back the money that you lost during the pandemic. There's a lot of different reasons why our sleep is disturbed. Prioritize sleep moving forward. Yes, if it's possible for you, that might even mean taking a nap. Sleep is so, so nourishing for your nervous system and your immune system. Give yourself permission to lie down and close your eyes. We really don't get enough rest as a society, and your body deserves to rest. Another one of my favorite ways to really ground into the moment and slow everything down is to connect to your five senses. So if we have time at the end, we might practice this together, but what do you feel, see, hear, taste, and smell, and use those as anchors into your present moment. Oftentimes we stay in that chronic fight or flight mode, that over activation mode, because we're very out of tune with the present moment and where we are. You can use your five senses to connect better into this moment, to connect better into your present moment, so you're not always worrying about the future or feeling sad about the past. So some ways to anchor into your senses are candles, essential oils, incense. For me, when I have to be, before a presentation like this, I light my favorite candle or my favorite incense and sit down for 5 minutes before giving the presentation so that I'm in here in this space fully and giving it my 100%. We also, just as a side note, we also can tend to get burned out. And it's not often that sometimes we're doing too much, and sometimes we're not doing enough of what we love. So that can mean like we're going right from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and not resting until nighttime. So for me, that also means between Zoom meetings, like throwing on my favorite song and lighting my favorite incense and taking a couple deep breaths and like dancing or listening to like my favorite podcast. So adding that kind of scent with something else. Sound is also really powerful. I kind of just like jumped the gun there, stating how I listen to music between Zoom calls, but singing and humming can activate the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that runs through your diaphragm and helps you get into a rest and digest state. So it's really powerful for helping to regulate your nervous system. That's another thing I could probably talk about for 3 hours. But just know that singing and humming are really, really, really good for your body and brain. As well as the same idea that certain songs can take you back to a joyful moment. Certain bands or musicians can soothe you. You can use your five senses to really anchor you into the present moment and bring some joy back into your life. And just like I said, with sitting down to eat your meal, like when you're drinking a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, like really smell it, really taste it, indulge in your senses. Another great way to practice mindfulness and to help you move forward in a positive way is journaling. Connect to your intuition and emotions. It improves your mind-body connection. Writing can really transmute your thoughts and feelings onto the page, which really connects into your inner realm. So once again, it just helps you come back into the present moment a bit more. This is if you're feeling like you are in like overdrive, complete overdrive. I want you to take a picture of this because I want you to remember to do this. If you feel like you're in complete overdrive and you can't slow down, you can't pause, you're in that kind of fight or flight mode, this is for you. Notice 5 things you can see. Anything in your environment. What do you look at first? Name it. Coffee cup, candle, pen, computer. Notice 4 things you can touch or feel. Clothes on your skin, the ground beneath your feet, the chair under your bum, your hair on your neck. Notice 3 things you can hear. Music, coworkers, children. What sounds are next to you? What are far away? Notice 2 things you can smell. Perfume, flowers, shampoo, coffee. What is near and what is far. And last but not least, notice 1 thing you can taste. This could be whatever the inside of your mouth tastes like or taking a big sip of tea. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is a great way to stop yourself from a kind of a negative spiral, to stop that chronic sympathetic overdrive and anchor you into the present moment. Alrighty, so that's kind of how to move forward with mindfulness and how to really combat all this uncertainty that unfortunately we might be living with for a little bit longer and that we have been living with for the past couple of years. Now, I just want to touch a little bit on making decisions that work for you, receiving community support, and how that can be really a great thing moving forward. One thing that one of my mentors taught me, actually more in the realm of physical therapy and research, because but I think can be really helpful in this terms. For the world of physical therapy, for movement, for all of the sciences, things are constantly changing. We're constantly doing more research. We're constantly learning new things about the human body, about the environment we live in. And I'd say most of us as humans are constantly evolving and constantly learning new things. One of my mentors said this to me, and it really simplified the process. I felt like I was always worried about doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And she said, you have to make the best decision you can right now with the information you have at this moment. So I repeat that again. I want you to think about it. You have to make the best decision you can right now with the information you have at this current moment. You can't make a decision based on information you might have in even 3 weeks. You have to make the best decision that you can right here and right now. And a kind of great way to make a choice, if you need to make a hard choice, is this kind of mindfulness practice of slowing down to make a choice. First, you pause and take a deep breath. You weigh the options, maybe you create a pro con list, you write out the details of each option, consult trusted resources, doctors, research articles, experts, professionals. Talk to friends and family members or peers you might feel aligned with. Only talk to people who know and will ultimately respect whatever choice you make and someone you feel like you can talk openly to. Make your decision and stick with it. Recognize that you can change your mind as you learn more information and grow in life, and give yourself some grace that the world is ever changing, that what we thought to be true 2 years ago is not what we thought to be true, might not be what is true 2 years from now. We all learn, we all grow, we all change, and we have to take that into account when making decisions. One thing I also say a lot in my physical therapy practice, because I am constantly learning and I am constantly trying new things, is I reserve the right to change my mind. I personally am not the same practitioner I was when I started out of graduate school. And I hope in 10 years, I'm not the same practitioner I am today. I'm always learning and evolving and learning new things. So I do reserve the right to change my mind. I will say, just because I'm a health care practitioner, I do feel like I have to put this caveat out there. I'm not doing things that are wildly inappropriate with my clients, but new information comes to light all the time. So recognize that when you're making a hard decision, if you have to make a hard decision moving forward, that you have the right to change your mind as you learn new information and as you grow as a human being. Last but not least, during these tough times, during all of these past couple of years, offering and receiving support can be super, super helpful. Offering support to those around you can increase pro-social behaviors, that's positive behaviors in the community, increase a sense of community, decrease feelings of loneliness, improve motivation, and it has better outcomes for the community as a whole. I remember something as simple when it was during the height of quarantine. One of my neighbors set up a table on their front stoop where you could either drop off extra food or clothing or pick up. And there was no one kind of monitoring it. I'm sure they had a camera on it, but you could drop things off and you could pick it up, no questions asked. And it was just a really great way to offer support without people feeling, self-conscious. Some ways that you can do this is offer just a helping hand to a neighbor in need, maybe help them hang their holiday lights, donating old clothing, even offering carpools with their parents and families, or volunteering at a local animal shelter or homeless shelter. These are just a couple examples. On the flip side of that, we all go through tough seasons. We all need help from time to time. Asking for help does not mean you're weak or needy. Asking for help can actually save a community and can save a family. So as we move forward as a community, as a society, I think it's important that we recognize how we feel and where we are, that we recognize what we need, and that we do our best to stay in the present moment, make the best decision that we can today, know that we can always change our minds and offer support to those around us. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat now. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. I wish you all the best in the new year, and that you take whatever comes at you with some mindfulness and some resiliency. Have a wonderful day.